I was thinking, we had a very nice community sharing yesterday about, where people were at, what's going on with people. And one of the things that came up in a couple of different ways, some kind of overt and some not so overt, was people referring to the habit of mind where we get stuck on something. We get stuck on or especially a problem. Or this person. It's easy to get stuck on this person is doing this, and this person is doing this, and this person is doing this, and they're doing it to me, and this person is doing this. Or our problems like, I'm not good enough at this, and look, everybody's so good at this, and I'm not ever going to be good enough at this. And so it reminded me of an antidote that Venerable Trudrin gave us some years ago that I thought to share, because it's very, very useful. She did this first at a Cloud Mountain retreat some years ago, where she had everybody, a few days into the retreat, it was kind of a longish retreat, maybe 7-10 days, where people you're sat there long enough to start obsessing about something. And she had everybody write down the problem that they were obsessing about on a little piece of paper. And we folded them all up, and we put them in a bowl or something in the middle of the room, and then she kind of mixed them up, and she had everybody else draw one back out. And she said, okay, now, this is your problem. Whenever your mind goes to that obsessive thing that you're obsessing about, open up the piece of paper and read that person's problem. Because in that version of it, we actually wrote it out quite lengthily. Yeah, you're right, quite detailed. Well, everybody was like, bad enough. Now we have this other problem. Now I'm supposed to have this homework where I think about somebody else's problem. But she's done it subsequent to that a few times. We've done it here. And it is really a powerful antidote. Why? Because it kicks us out of ourself right away, I think, is the thing that works the best. So, for example, the year that we did it on winter retreat here, we didn't have such a long explanation. Maybe we knew each other better, I don't know. But you got a little one-line thing. And maybe depending on whose problem you got. But the problem I picked was somebody whose brother had just died, suddenly, of a heart attack. And she had decided not to leave the retreat, that she was going to stay in retreat. So I don't actually remember what Mai was obsessing about, but surely something. For sure something, not surely. For sure I was obsessing about something. And the power of my little piddly problem of training my mind to go when I could catch myself, oops, my brother just died. It was a very powerful, particular, somebody else's problem to get my hand on. It's like, oh, then you have to worry about that person, that brother, that's not mine, the family that's left behind, all of those things that were going on in the mind of our friend, actually. But to get it out of myself, my own little trip about what I was worried about and who did what to me, and how come they never do this to me, and how come I always have to, that's really mine, how come I always have to instantly go to, oh, my brother died. And think about how that felt. How does that feel for our friend? How does that feel for other people when your brother dies? How does that feel when people have to deal with the death of any loved one? It immediately kicks us out of our self-centered thought, and we go to a much different kind of place. Like, wow, there's a whole world of people whose brother just died. Hundreds, thousands. That's a different kind of mind. And it helps bring us back to, out of our self-centeredness, and helps bring us back to, what is this bodhicitta motivation anyway? We want to think about sentient beings, especially, I think, when we get on retreat. It's a little bit, it can get kind of theoretical. We're here, there's 20 people, sometimes just 10 people, thinking about all sentient beings, and that's really lovely. And then you look at the 10 people you've been looking at for the last 2 months, and they all have crunchy faces. It's hard to have bodhicitta, right? But to really kick our mind out of our problem and our judgment about those other faces, and think, my brother died, or my back hurts, or somebody else's problem becomes our own. So I found a thing where Venable had talked about this, and she has an application that's more general than writing it up and putting it in a bowl. But it is when you, the other thing she noted was, when you start obsessing about somebody else's problem, you get bored really fast. Somebody else's whine, oh whine, oh whine, I don't want to think about it. We've been through this twice now, that's good enough. My problem, over and over and over, year after year after year after year. But as soon as it becomes somebody else's problem, we see how boring it actually is to have that sort of mindset. So when she said, here this was much more general, but she said when you start to find yourself obsessing about that, try to train your mind to really think about, like, I don't like the food that was served today. Think about the people who aren't eating today at all. And not just take your mind and go, oh yeah, there are people who aren't eating. That's like, well, there's poor children starving in China, so I should eat everything on my plate. But actually use our imagination to go to, how does it feel not to know whether I'm going to eat today or not? Venerable Tarpa's been talking to us about the refugees. How many? 30 million? Oh yeah, anyway. More and more refugees. Yes, more and more refugees in the world today right now than there have been since World War II. And it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere, and there's not enough food to get in there, and there's water issues in the refugee camps, and there's sanitation and health issues in those refugee camps. That's an easy place to send your mind and go, oh, let me worry about that. I'm a mom with 4 kids and living under a piece of plastic. Now let me obsess about that problem for a while. It changes our mind very, very quickly. So it's a training. We don't naturally go there, but it's such a great antidote to kind of pick a spot in a world, pick a person in the world, whether we know them or don't know them. And when we find ourselves obsessing about our own problems, kick your mind there and really let it take it out of ourselves and into a different realm. It changes our whole way of being and makes our own minds a lot lighter. So you guys have, people here have done this before. Is there anything you want to share about? Yeah, the boring thing is strong. You see how boring it is to obsess. Yeah.
Also, it helps me feel compassion for the person's story.
Yeah.
See what it is that's making them suffer so deeply. I get more inside of that.
Yeah, so especially if somebody that we know or somebody who's there. So when we're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody else and obsess about their problem, it actually helps us understand that person and what they're dealing with and creates more compassion for just that individual. Yeah, also true in some case.
I think when we did that in Kala, maybe a year or two, they were anonymous.
Yeah, they were.
I did the hammering, but anyway, so that helped me because it was like all beings want to be happy, all beings don't want to suffer. So it didn't even have to have a name.
Yeah.
If it had a name, then I would have created another story around their story.
Yeah.
The fact that it was anonymous, it made every face in that room a possible person who this was, but it didn't matter.
So the year we did it at the retreat, they were all anonymous. And so to be able to pick up somebody else's story without knowing who it was, and without having a whole story about them, made it easier to go to the mind that recognizes that everybody wants to be happy and free from suffering. Yeah. I think in our little retreat, it's harder to be anonymous because we all kind of know each other, right? So you know the problems. But anyway, I offer it as an antidote. It's really a great mind training, useful tool to help us get out of our... We all know this one. So we can kick it out and think about somebody else's problem for a while. It will help.